Welcome, all of you. Welcome to the BFI London Film Festival. Thank you very much for Trumbo, a film which I'm sure everyone here has seen. Many of you probably just this morning, actually. Insightful, I think, and importantly also entertaining movie, which celebrates the importance of artistic independence. A quick question from me to begin with. I think we'll all agree, having seen it, and you'll agree, having made it, that it's important in that it explores a shameful episode of American and Hollywood history, and that alone makes it worth exploring. But I'm keen to know what each of you feel the more modern resonances you felt the film had that made it important to make now, and for people to watch and think about it now. What do you think makes Trumbo an urgent film?
Well, I think the message resonates internationally. Anytime a government overreaches its powers to oppress the free civil rights of its citizenry, that's cause for alarm. And it happened in the United States. It breached what our First Amendment to the Constitution states as free speech. And a man went to prison for a year for committing no crime. And I think that's it's certainly worth a story. And as a cautionary tale, I think it hopefully it will resonate internationally.
It's a small section of the government exploiting the fear and propagating paranoia to the people, and it feeds upon itself. And it is a cautionary tale because it's happening now.
Anyone else like to?
I would say that in the context of the character that I play, Hedda Hopper, like you guys, a journalist, and especially in the light of what's happened within the press and journalism here in this country in the last 3 or 4 years, it is also a story about the fearful power of the press and the way it can be, in a sense, misused, or at least when the press engages so immediately, if that's the right way of putting it, with the zeitgeist, is that the right word, of the time, instead of challenging the zeitgeist. You know, my character just plays with the power of her journalism, plays to the fears and the paranoia of her public, and it is I think it shows us how very dangerous that power can be.
Thank you. A question to Brian and to John as American actors. These events happened long before you started out as young actors, but I'm keen to know that when you were both starting out in the 70s and 80s as young actors, could you still feel the shockwaves of these events in your industry in terms of divisions, lingering resentment, stories that you heard from probably older colleagues?
From older actors, yeah. There was when I started out in the mid-'70s, there was a lot of older actors had friends or that were themselves touched by the scare, which ended 15 years before I started. There was still a great deal of resentment, and I grew up studying the tenets of the group theater, and they were especially devastated by the HUAC, and a lot of people I contacted were affected.
Brian?
I can't honestly say no, that when I started, it wasn't a topic of conversation. John, being several years my senior, I'm certain that he was around during those days and remembers them firsthand.
Let's start taking
Can
questions.
I just say that we, of
please.
course, in Britain, when I first came into the industry, we, in a sense, in Britain benefited because some of the directors, in particular, I'm thinking of Joseph Losey, who, as I understand, was one of the, one of the people who had to leave America, and of course, we benefited in Europe from the brilliance of those directors. You know, Joe Losey, when I was first an actor, I would died to work with Joe Losey. He was the sort of preeminent art film director working in Britain. So, that was an immediate sort of outfall of that time.
Thank you. Can I start taking questions, please? I'll set 2 or 3 up. There's one here. We can get the microphone here, and I can see one down here. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Luke Hayfield from Wild 24/7. My question's for Brian Cranston. You've gotten to play some mesmerising characters with insatiable dialogue. Trumbo, in particular, was a man renowned for his witticisms and eloquent vocabulary. What's your personal favourite Trumbo quote or Trumbo-ism, and why? Also, my flatmate is dying to know, will you make a Walter White cameo in Better Call Saul anytime soon? Thank you.
I don't know if a cameo is in the works for Better Call Saul for my character. It could be, and I certainly would do it if Vince Gilligan wanted me to. I would absolutely do that. As far as a Trumbo witticism, I think that the phrase that keeps ringing in my ears really is emblematic of the message in Trumbo. And that is the moment when Trumbo addresses John Wayne and says, we just have a different opinion, and that's the point. We both have the right to be wrong.
Thank you. Question here, please. If I can set one up. There's one at the back there as well.
Good morning.
Keep going up. Thanks.
Danny Kelly from Met Film School. I felt the film was really quite fun and energetic, more so than a lot of other kind of more self-important biopics. I wonder if that was something that any of you sensed when you first read the script, and if it wasn't, what was it that actually attracted you to Trumbo?
Maybe start with Adewale.
There's so many things that attract you to a project like this. First of all, Dalton Trumbo himself. I'm a huge fan of him because, not simply because of the historic impact he's had on our industry, but just as a man. And as we were alluding to earlier, how the themes that come from this film just resonate throughout the ages, whether it's the 1930s or to now. I mean, he's a man who stood for what he believed, sacrificed everything, put it all on the line. So, I mean, just reading how incredible he was as an individual inspired me. And then, of course, the esteemed cast that I was privileged to work with, and a great director, Jay Roach. These are all people that invest themselves in the art of telling the truth in stories, and I'd certainly want to be a part of that. And, John McNamara, a fantastic writer. I'm sure the other cast members will agree. There was nothing. I remember Jay Roach had called me up and said, is there anything you wanted to discuss or alter about the dialogue? And, what are you going to change that John McNamara had written? It was just, for me, it was flawless. And just a wonderful journey.
Thank you. Anyone else like to pick up on that question about the script?
Well, the nature of the occupation themselves, they were very prolific writers, wordsmiths, and Dalton certainly was one of the top, and he enjoyed the flamboyancy and flair and the dramatic nature that he had, and he always enjoyed the idea of using a word where his audience may not know what it meant, just to stump them a little bit. So there was that inherent to the story, but it always has to first and foremost be about the story and how that story is supported by the text. And if that is there, as Adewale was speaking to, then you have a great chance to make an important film.
I've always been attracted to great storytellers. It's something I lack in myself, and I'm always baffled as to how it works. And this came off the page just as a lot of fun about a serious topic, and I want it on board.
Thank you very much. There's a question at the back there, and if I could just set one up over here. There's a one down here in the second row, then I'll come to the back.
Mr. Harkness for the Scotsman here. It's a question for Brian. You were here, you and John were both here a couple of years ago with Argo, which obviously went on to huge Oscar success. That was a very heroic story about Hollywood. It showed Hollywood in a very good light. This and has some quite scathing things to say about the Academy Awards. How do you think that's going to play out as the film is being positioned as an awards contender in the autumn season?
It's not something that I focus on. I know John and Helen probably don't even think about it either. Our job really is to focus on trying to make the best film possible, and then now it's to promote it so that people get a chance to see it, and hopefully it resonates not only with critics but with audiences to see an important story told in an entertaining way. If people beyond that want to celebrate it with some nomination of some sort in some area, great, but it's certainly not a focus in my mind.
Thank you. Come down, I think there's a question down here in the second row, if we could get the microphone there. Thank you. Then we'll go to the back, then we'll come here.
Hi, Daryl Smith from the Scottish Sunday Post newspaper. Question for all the actors, and I'm not saying this is the case with Trumbo, but when you get a script that is pushing a political agenda that you yourself don't agree with, do you see yourself as actors that it's your job just to play what's on the page, or would you not do that script?
I wouldn't do a script that perpetuated ideas or philosophies that I absolutely didn't agree with. I would play a character, as I do in this movie, perpetuating different ideas within the context of this sort of film. But no, I wouldn't commit to a film. I mean, I have quite a broad, understanding of life in general. But no, if a film was politically pushing an agenda that I very strongly disagreed with, I could not partake in that at all. No.
I'd be doing disservice to the filmmakers if I signed up doing something like that.
I would for the money.
It had to be a lot of money, though, wouldn't it? It had to be more than normal.
But in some ways, it's not a political agenda. That's more personal and important. I mean, but in some ways, when you do that, you're taking on the role of a heavy who has the antagonist and that point of view. And it's actually fun to get behind a character like that. But if it strikes something very personal, no, you don't want to promulgate that.
It's always tricky. I think it's a thin line that you tread as an artist because you're a tool and you're expressing a character and also showing an audience that person's view. So that technically is my job, but it's tricky because as a human being you have your cutoff points. But I think I would like to think that I would be able to do that. And it's always challenging because I've played characters where they're criminals and things that I wouldn't do. But I think, as John said, when it's political, that sort of like is more of a personal note. But as an artist, I would like to think that I would play those characters that, I didn't necessarily agree with. I'm not saying it would be nice.
Yeah. No, I think there's a difference between playing the character, which is one thing, and being in a film that is perpetuating a concept or an idea that you have absolute and that you absolutely don't agree with. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I think there are two different things there. I mean, absolutely, you can play characters whose lifestyle or whose attitude or whose actions you can profoundly disagree with. The difficulty is always to find your personal sympathy with that character, which is what we kind of have to do, isn't it, to make them real and human. That's one thing. But to be in a movie that is perpetuating politically, sending a message out to the audience that you profoundly disagree with, I think that would be not impossible for any of us, I think, as artists,
Thank you very much. I know there are two questions towards the back here. There's one gentleman, you had the microphone already, thank you. Then we'll come down, thanks.
Hi, Kat Corbetti from Flickering Myth. My question is for Helen. Your character wears some pretty glorious hats.
Where are you from? What?
I'm from Flickering Myth.
Flickering,
flickering, as in the flickering reel?
Oh, flickering.
Flickering,
Okay.
indeed.
Yeah.
So my question to you is, do you have a personal favorite, or is there a
Of all the hats I
number?
wear?
Yes.
Oh, I can't remember now. I loved all of them. I mean, I love hats, actually. It's my great sadness in my life that hats became something that people didn't wear anymore. But I loved every single one. I mean, my costumes in general were just such a laugh, you know. They were so brilliant. Our costume design was amazing. A lot of them were original vintage pieces, and then he had extra pieces made. But yeah, what fun to be able to wear hats for once in a movie. That was really great.
Did you have fun?
Daily, dear, daily, yes. Yes.
Helen, did you have fun going back and reading Hedda Hopper's columns and watching those?
I watched.
Reels?
I don't know about how much fun it was. I've never been a great fan of celebrity journalism. Even when I wanted to
Present company excluded.
present company accepted. Even when I sort of wanted to be an actress and I was sort of dreaming about it, I didn't dream about it through reading, you know, fanny sort of those sorts of things. So I find it kind of boring, actually, I'm afraid to say. But her, I was more interested in reading about her. Did read a very interesting book, which was all about the letters that were sent to her, which really gave you a view into the mindset of very ordinary people in America at that time. So that was very interesting.
Thank you. So there's a question here on the end of the row. Thank you. I did promise there's someone here as well we'll go to next. If we can get the microphone to the end of this row. Thanks.
Sorry, another question for Helen, if I may. Sort of following on from that, sorry, Simon Button, UK Freelance. You're well known for being very gracious with the press, pretty much at all times. Yes, you are, yeah. Oh. I wondered, though, what you would have thought of Hedda if you'd actually met her. And on a sort of like...
she would have scared the shit out of me, absolutely. Both of those, you know, and the Walter Winchells of the world. And there are a lot of journalists who scare the shit out of me, quite honestly, you know, nowadays. You know, in our business, we have to be open to the press, and I think we all feel it's part of our job. You know, it's very much part of our job. But at the same time, you're always you're always about to fall off the wire, you know, into the pit below of snarling snakes and serpents.
Present company excluded.
No, I'm really talking about the comments, you know, the comment part of the internet, that sort of world. You might tumble in. We all tumble into it regularly, I guess. So it's all a bit nerve-wracking. But it's part of our job, absolutely, an essential part of our job, and you know, we're very grateful to you guys for being in this room today when you could be somewhere else. You know, we're very grateful to you for turning up and doing what you're doing.
Present company included.
Thank you very much. There's a question here, please. Then after this, I'd like to go to the back on this side. There's two hands over there. Thanks.
Sorry, Jane Monk from Etc. Magazine. A question for Brian. Do you think it's fair to say that the Spartacus film revived Trumbo's career? Do you think that was the film that really got him going again? Or was it Brave One?
It was actually a combination of Spartacus and Exodus. With Otto Preminger and Kirk Douglas, but it was Spartacus, the film when he saw his name for the first time after 13 years on a screen, and having Kirk stand up and risk what he did, risk financial ruin and potential backlash and ostracism on his part. Truly was heroic on his part, what he did. And it was the contributing factor to break the blacklist. It didn't end immediately. It still continued to go on for quite a long time.
Until the early 60s, right?
Yeah.
Incredible.
So that was 1960. And it wasn't for another 3 or so years that it came to a complete end.
And actually, it was a woman I was reading. It was a women's organisation that finally put the nail in the coffin. I only read this recently, where they just made fun of them. They laughed at that. They were so mocked by these women.
Oh, wow.
It's really, and I can't remember the women's organisation. Maybe someone out here knows. One of you very clever journalists, you should know, because it's your job. But look it up on your Google it right now. Who put the final nail? Which women's organisation?
If someone does, feel free to shout it out.
Yeah, and then feel free to shout it out. But it was really great to see that.
Thank you. There are a couple of questions at the back of the room.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Albert. I work for various Scandinavian media. Just to continue on this political surge, I want to know from the American actors, perhaps next year you have, of course, an election coming up with some very interesting candidates, extreme perhaps even. Have you seen...
Oh, like you don't have interesting candidates.
But have you seen over the last year scripts that you've read, have you seen perhaps more of a political movement in scripts that they have more of a political theme? I'm saying that also because the opening two films of this festival have had a political theme, both of them. So Suffragette and this film.
So I guess the question is Hollywood more or less political than ever?
I think Hollywood has always been very political. I think Hollywood is fascinated with politics and vice versa. But I think it's circumstantial that there might be in any given year films that are more political than say other years. I don't think there's certainly an agenda or any conferences like about a movement, which speaks to the whole story of Trumbo, that the House Un-American Activities Committee thought that there was collusion in Hollywood to promulgate communism through film, and it was a ridiculous notion, and it's all based on story and who's in power at any given time.
Thank you. I think there's another question towards the back there, please.
Yeah, hi, me, yes.
And then we'll come forward.
Okay, hi, Tim Oglethorpe, freelance. Question, if I may, for Brian. It's a more trivial one than the last one, but the birds that your character works with in this movie, how did you manage to pull that off? How did you get on with them? And especially the scene where you have the bird on your shoulder, I wonder how you managed to do that.
Yes, that was great.
Or is it all down to CGI?
I placed the bird on my shoulder. It was...
Did it stay? Well, why did it stay?
I love that little bird. His name was Sloppy Joe. And he loved to preen. So I had the fake mustache, and so he would constantly be pecking at my mustache. And so we just incorporated that as if it were kisses. He would also dig into my ear. I don't know what he found in there that was so interesting. And then he would pick at my hair. He was very affectionate, and many times he would rub against me, and I just fell in love with that little bird. And I think it was funny when the scene with Otto Preminger, he says, I say my daughter thinks I can, heal, fix the pain of all birds, and he says, so can I, with a broiler. Is that do you work for Aviary News or something?
Ornithology Weekly.
Ornithology Weekly, yeah.
There's a question here in the middle, please. If we get the microphone, yes, thank you very much.
Hi, Alistair Livesley from Empire. I just wanted to ask about working with Jay Roach, because I know you kind of look at the list of films he's made before, and it's quite, I think at first sight, it seems a surprising match for this story. I know, John, you were saying about it's kind of a lot of fun to be had around a serious subject. Did it feel, when you were making this, that you were treating it just as a kind of out-and-out comedy, and you were going to let the the message kind of speak for itself, that it would come through? Or did you feel like there was quite a fine balance to be struck?
Who's the question for? For which?
Sorry, I forgot to say, that's for anyone who would like to answer it.
From my small experience on the film, it certainly wasn't sort of shot as a comedy. And we did a read-through, didn't we? Few months, 6 months or something before we shot, and the approach in the read-through was not necessarily comedic at all. But I think whenever you have a director with an inbuilt sense of humour, as Jay does, it just naturally comes out, because he can see the humour in things, in normal everyday things. I think that's the best kind of humour anyway, that's not built around jokes, but is just built around the absurdity of human behaviour. No, but I didn't feel that he was directing it as a comedy at all.
No, in the States, Jay also directed two very serious political films, Game Change and Recount, in the States, and so his body of work spans both comedy and drama, just as an actor wants to create that for themselves in their performance level.
Mm. Thank you. Is there another question around here, please? Yeah, gentleman with a hand up.
Hi, Ian Schultz from People's Movies. Is still blacklisted within Hollywood?
Is there still blacklisting in Hollywood? I think there is some self-imposed blacklisting in Hollywood. You could say Mel Gibson has done something, and any misbehavior is certainly that. It depends on the sensitivity of behavior now. So if you have skeletons coming out of your closet that expose you to abnormal behavior or any kind of criminal behavior, you could put yourself on that blacklist because people don't want to work with you. There was a time when I was told that I was this is many, many years ago, up for a film, and I was very excited about it because it was a job, and they said, I think they're gonna get O.J. Simpson to be in the movie too, and I went, oh, no. And as actors started hearing about that, they started dropping out.
Was this after?
This is after. Yeah, this is after. Mm. And they start dropping out, and the movie fell apart because it just wasn't possible to sustain that kind of thing. So I hope that there aren't any political blacklists. I hope there isn't any sexual orientation blacklist. I think we're moving out of that as a society, and that's a great thing. There's probably some lists of people who don't want to hire certain people. But for me, there's probably 4 people in this world I wouldn't want to work with again after 35 years.
And they're all sitting at this table.
And they're all and they're right here.
So a question from me to all or any of you. I can't imagine as actors it's possible to make this film without looking at the characters in this film and the real-life characters in this film and the pressure that's put on their personal and professional lives, and not think as actors now, what would I have done? What would have gone through my mind? I wonder if any of you could pick that up. What was your answer to that? Did you ask yourself that question?
Sure. Goes hand in hand with the selection. I don't know what I'd do. I hope I behaved nobly, but I'm sure I would have caved like something that caves.
It is, of course, it's a question you ask yourself in doing something like a film like this. And it would be just like this, wouldn't it? Because this is how they were. They had the microphone like this, and they lean forward and say, no. Or what did Trumbo always say? What did he say at the things he'd say?
You mean what the question was?
Yeah,
there?
no, well, his answer is, I don't have to answer. I take the fifth, or whatever they say.
Yeah, the first.
Yeah,
He took the first.
Oh, the first. I take the first, yeah. Anyway, it was exactly like this, wasn't it? Them sitting at the table. And I go, I don't know what I'd do. It's a terrifying thought. It's awful. But it's the thought you have about, I just did a film called Woman in Gold, which was about the Nazi occupation of Vienna, and you do think, what would I have done then? Would I have just walked past when I saw a woman being forced to clean the pavement with a toothbrush? Would I have just walked past thinking, I can't deal with this, I'll just go home and make a cup of tea? It's a tough question that we should all ask ourselves all the time.
I think that's why Dalton Trumbo is such a compelling character, because he does the things that certainly I would love to think that I would do, given being confronted with such obstacles. But I think a lot of it comes down to your circumstances as well. I mean, some of them had families, a lot more to sacrifice than others. But I think ultimately, we don't really know. You never know what you do until you're confronted with it.
Thank you very much. I'm going to have to bring the press conference to the close, I'm afraid. I wish you all good luck for the premiere tonight, and thank you to all our guests. Thank you
all
for
very much.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.